You pick. What's more important, an accurate count of the number of people living in Florida or knowing how many people live here legally? The Trump administration is adding a question to the upcoming census. Are you a U.S. citizen? Fair enough. But critics claim undocumented aliens might fear ICE would be notified if they answer no. The stakes are high. States are allotted members of Congress based on population. The more members of Congress you have, the more influence you have. And a lot of federal funding is also based on population. Joining us for more are Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com, former State Representative Keith Fitzgerald, and Danny Furstman. Did I pronounce that right?
Absolutely.
Okay. A political science professor at State College. Gentlemen, welcome to you all. There are a number of issues here, and let's take them one at a time. Most importantly for all Florida residents, I would imagine, is that the more members of Congress we have, the more influence we have in Congress, and if anything gets in the way of counting the number of bodies in Florida, that would be problematic. Rod, your opinion?
I don't see how they're mutually exclusive, to be honest with you, because the question about citizenship is not about whether you're here legally or not. It's a question of whether you're a citizen or not. There's lots of people that are here legally that aren't citizens.
Right, but let's say you fear, if you're not here legally, and therefore you may be fearful of filling it out, you're not, and there goes one more person.
Well, and that's possible. However, we've had it it's been a question that's been part of the census all along, either in the long form or the short form, with I think 2 exceptions since 1790, and then Barack Obama eliminated it in 2009. That was the first time in the actual 10-year census that it was totally eliminated, since other than 1 or 2 other times in our entire history. So I don't even remember, Alan, it being a deal at the time. I don't remember a whole bunch of red state attorney generals suing over that. I don't remember a big flap over it. I don't remember anything. He just eliminated the question. I don't think Americans have a problem with knowing who's in our country. Why do we not want to know that? Why do we not want to know the status? This is, if you're looking for just a base number of data, why would you not want to know that?
Keith, do you believe that the motivation of the Trump administration is really accuracy here, or in some way to depress the count in certain states which may not be friendly?
It's a really easy question. The Census Bureau, which is a pretty impressive bureaucracy, has many really accurate tools to assess the number of people who are in the country who are not citizens. They do community surveys nationwide. It gives them a very accurate count. They know how many people are here not legally, how many people are here legally. They already have that data. So this has nothing to do with gathering information about how many people are here from other countries. It's about reducing the representation of areas that have high concentrations of non-citizens.
But let me ask you quickly, but Florida, this is a state that voted for Trump in the 2016 election, so why would you want to do anything to damage Florida per se?
In Texas too.
Well, it's not specifically trying to damage any particular state. It's trying to reduce the amount of representation for urban areas where there are high concentrations. So, if you look at how gerrymandering actually works, you pack people and then you crack people. This is a way of making sure that those people who are packed have less representation than they would otherwise.
But Danny, as you pointed out, the question itself has come and gone in past census.
Yeah, the issue isn't necessarily the question specifically, it's the broader environment that it's feeding into. So whether the question's on there or not, just the fact that this is a big news story now is going to create a lot of headaches for the Census Bureau trying to get respondents in Hispanic communities to take the survey. They're thinking, whether that question's on there at the end or not, it's the issue of, am I interacting with the government? Do I trust the government? Whether I'm a citizen or not, do I trust the government with my sensitive information?
Okay, we are just getting warmed up, and we'll have much more on changes to the census right after we check. But first, weather. Stay with us. Welcome back. So should the census ask you whether you are a U.S. citizen? Joining us for more are Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com, former State Representative Keith Fitzgerald, and Danny Furstman. Did I say that right? Furstman.
You had it the first time. You're making it too hard on yourself.
Sorry about that. A political science professor at State College. Rod, here's the question. As you saw in Taylor's story, you saw a bunch of landscapers talking, and that some of them do feel that if they filled out the census form, it would be a direct line of communication to ICE. When you hear that, what's your reaction?
Well, it makes sense that they would think that because of a couple of things. The big deal Democrats and liberals are making out of it, the large play the media have made out of it, but the fact is that they've been asked that question all along until just the very last census. If Obama had not taken it out of the last census, we would have no story at all right now. It would be the exact same as it was before. This would just be the status quo it always has been, and they either would or wouldn't have that concern, but none of it would be playing out like it is now.
Keith, fair enough?
No, I don't think that's accurate at all. First of all, you have to think about what Trump's policy is with ICE, and they've been very open about it. They're trying to make everyone uncomfortable and fearful that they may be next. They're not focusing anymore on people who are wrongdoers. They're focusing on everyone. And it's part of a policy to try to help people make a decision to leave. Obviously, they're going to be very fearful about participating in this. It's not a media thing. It's a direct, intentional outcome of the Trump policy. I do trust the people in the census. They have a great deal of integrity, and they have really good firewalls. This data is not going over to ICE. But I think the whole point of the ICE policy that President Trump has enacted is to make people uncomfortable and fearful about government.
Danny, we started at the outset talking about how population is related to how many members of Congress that you have, but there's a lot of other things that are riding on it, including areas of federal assistance distributed using Census Bureau data include Medical Assistance Program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is SNAP, temporary assistance for needy families, Section 8 housing. In all, 132 programs that distribute $675 billion. So again, we raise the question, is there politics to asking that question?
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly a political issue on both sides. If you look at the lawsuit that's taking place right now, in Colorado, you have a Democratic governor who's suing, but the Republican Attorney General won't take part in it, so they're not using the Attorney General's office to be part of the lawsuit. When you see something like that, you're going to be pretty sure that this is political on both sides. It's, it comes down to how we can get our money and where we're going to get it from and who can get the most.
And as you saw in Taylor's story also, the New York Attorney General is taking part in that lawsuit, but our Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is not. A lot of people, Keith would say, look, if you have nothing to fear, then why not answer the question? I mean, don't we as Americans have a right to know whether you are here legally or not?
Well, as I said before, the United States government has, and the Census Bureau, has very good instruments to estimate the number of people who are in the country not legally. And ICE has the power to investigate anybody if there's some evidence that they're not here. So this really has nothing to do about enumerating the number of people here who are not citizens. We already have ways of knowing that are extremely accurate.
But Rod, a lot of people, what Keith says may be absolutely true, but they're also going to see anybody who is knocking on the door coming from the federal government, they're going to suspect that this information is going to go right back to ICE.
Right, well, they may suspect that. I don't think that would happen, although I used to have more trust in the FBI, too. I have less so now. So maybe
that's another show.
It is. But going back to what you were talking about, the $675 billion in essentially welfare programs. And I think this is one of the reasons why an awful lot of hardworking Americans who pay their taxes look at this and say, darn right, we want to know who's here legally and who is here not legally. This doesn't even ask that. This asks citizenship questions. It's correct that it's federal law that all represent, the members of Congress represent all the residents, and so they need to be counted. But the idea is that shows that that's a lot of money going from tax-paying Americans to people who might be here illegally. Well, don't we have a right to know that as Americans?
Because a lot of people watching this might be thinking, because of what I read there, that it is illegal immigrants who are receiving food assistance and welfare and so forth. But that's not the case because they're not eligible for it.
They're not eligible.
Well, they're not. Well, okay, that's actually disputable because because all they need is a Social Security number, and those are obtained illegally all the time.
That's not true. They have to prove that they are legally residents of the country. A Social Security number is not sufficient. They have to have the same kind of ID we need when we renew our driver's license. That's why we have that Real ID program in the driver's licenses. It's supposed to be secure enough to know that people cannot get it without proving their citizenship. And that's the kind of ID you need to be eligible to those programs.
I would suggest
this is not no, it's just not about those people getting welfare. What it's about is the representation of the population, which is what the Constitution calls for. And this is an effort to reduce the representation of certain areas, even though it's larger, by making it difficult to count the people who live there, so that some people will be overrepresented. I mean, sometimes, Rod, you forget that all of us are Americans. It's not just...
No, American citizens are Americans.
All citizens...
No, just because somebody came in here illegally doesn't make them Americans.
We're not talking about illegal people. We're talking about American citizens who live in cities who should have more representation according to the rules that are set out in the Constitution.
Which is why we need to know if they're citizens or not when they come here. That's exactly why we need to know. And what you just described, Keith, is exactly what a lot of people like me are saying is what we need for voting. Just basic ID and representation for voting. And we're told that that's going to suppress certain types of votes. And I'm saying this sort of ID makes a lot of sense to me. I would also say in California, illegals now do get driver's licenses. They are in line to be able to vote. I see no reason why they will not qualify for welfare benefits in California.
Danny, what's the state of play here? You have a number of states, not all of them finally joining this lawsuit here. Can the administration just add this question without any kind of approval from either the Congress or the courts?
I mean, generally speaking, the census submits the questions that they're going to use to Congress a few years in advance. This particular case is very unusual to have a question added this late, although it is a question that has been asked before and is currently asked in the annual American Community Survey. So we know the item itself is okay, whether just sticking it into the survey has some other ramifications. So the courts will make that decision, but yeah, the Census Bureau certainly has the authority to modify the census instrument however it sees fit.
And when would Congress be voting on this?
Congress isn't really going to have any sort of, this is...
They just submitted
They
to
have
Congress.
given the authority to the Census Bureau to design this instrument as they see fit. And what's most likely going to happen, regardless of whether this item gets included, you're going to have, and they've sort of already seen this with some of the focus groups they've been doing with people, that in the Hispanic community, there's a lot of hesitancy to take any sort of census right now, whether there's a citizenship question or not. So the government's just going to end up spending a lot more money on having to do the census.
Keith, put your Democratic hat on, because as Rod points out, this question has come and gone from the census before, but it has never caused the kind of uproar that it is now.
Well, actually, that's not exactly true.
Okay.
As you may know, I wrote a book about the development of immigration policy over a long period of time. Many of the questions in the survey over the decades have been there for political purposes, to divide and to exclude. And a lot of them have been contentious over those years. So it's not like from 1790 to recent years that this was an uncontroversial thing. It's been controversial off and on. In the 1910 census, the Census Bureau went to amazing lengths to get data on Jewish immigrants and other Eastern European immigrants, because they wanted to show that they were excludable people that should not be allowed to be here. So there's a long history of this kind of thing being abused.
Rod, I want to give you the last word here.
Well, I don't know. That last part was news to me. I had no idea that under the Obama administration there was an idea of excluding Jewish people from Eastern Europe. Is that not what you just said, Keith?
No, it is not what
Okay.
I said. I said 1910, the census.
1910. I'm so sorry. I heard the wrong one. So what you're saying is the census has been used to exclude certain types of people, or to try to exclude certain types of people. I think that what we want to do here, and what is reasonable for me, and I'm not going to try and get inside Trump's mind, but what we want to do here is just get an accurate count of who's here and who they are.
All right, we have to leave it right there. I'm sorry, gentlemen, I wish we had more time. But before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show on the scales of justice. A road rage video went viral last month. A car seen ramming a motorcyclist off the road. It was soon found that the driver of the vehicle is allegedly an illegal alien. Sheriff Knight is calling for the suspect to be deported. We went to Facebook for your thoughts, and Juan says, if this guy was driving a car without a driver's license and then trying to kill someone, this is a reason to not keep him here. He's very lucky that the biker is alive. But Catherine says, in the road rage incident, what he did was awful, but the motorcycle rider is also at fault. He also has a history of traffic violations. And Joe says, deport the motorcycle rider for being an idiot and riding like a maniac. 3 comments, 3 different opinions. If you'd like to join the conversation on tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. We want to thank our guests for being here tonight, Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com, former State Representative Keith Fitzgerald, and Danny Fierstman, a political science professor at State College. The more you come, the more we'll get your name right.